Before we start, I always like to pray because I believe that it is the glory of God that gives us the wisdom to understand ourselves and to understand other people. And so with that in mind, can we bow our heads? Eternal Father in heaven, thank you, dear Lord, for this opportunity to explore our emotions. Help us, Lord, to achieve extreme emotional excellence as you intended for your people to have. May we honor you in all things. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so thank you. All right. So we're on this journey together, and we know that when we're making a choice, our choices are often made, in more cases than not, on an emotional level. When advertisers advertise to you, they try to sell to you at an emotional level. If, for example, we have a car magazine that might be advertising about transmissions, what do they have on the front, gentlemen?
Woman.
A woman. You heard that? A woman. Okay? He knows. And it's not that he is into car transmissions. I don't know that he is. But I've seen them on the racks where they are selling to the guys a woman. They even advertise on television. If a guy's driving a cool car, you know, the sexy girl is looking at him. So they're selling on an emotional level. Okay? Ladies, they sell to us makeup, clothing, everything on an emotional level. If you dress like this, or look like this, or buy this Gucci this, or Dior that, you will be the cool, the bomb. Okay, he says the bomb. Everything, often in the advertisement world, is sold to us emotionally. But very few times do we take a very clear look at our emotional intelligence. And that's what this is about. Studies in public health and research for years now, at least in the last 10 to maybe 15-ish years, have taken a critical look at how our emotions shape our choices, and in shaping our choices, shape our destination. And this is why it's so critical. Later this week, Valerie Roach is going to talk to you about creation, and in creation, it's going to have a segment about environment, and she's going to talk about toxic environments. I'm going to touch on that today, but it is really important that you look at your life and your life around you and determine, how is that environment affecting me today, okay? Some of you are dealing, I know a couple of you are pastors' wives. You have a church environment sometimes, and I don't have to tell you, that can be very toxic. And it is so hard because you have to not only stand against that toxicity, but you kind of have to protect your husband and your kids and your family and yourself. But sisters and brothers, if we don't take care of ourselves, we cannot help anyone else. It is that critical to understand your own emotional state. So we're going to look at our past. Now, at our ages, be it 40, 50, 60, 70, we tend to think, this is just how I'm responding now. No, 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 no. That emotional response is something that happened to you 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 years ago. It may have absolutely nothing to do with Hazel and our interaction right now, but I respond to her at my emotional level when I was 10 years old. Understand? And so we need to figure out, where am I emotionally? Am I 10, 12, 14, 15? Think about your children sometimes and some of the choices that they make. And you're like, honey, you are acting like you are 12 years old, because that's where they're emotionally stuck. But we're stuck too. We're stuck too. And so we're going to look at training techniques to help us better understand ourselves, understand those that we see around us, and those that we interact with, okay? in a few minutes, I'm going to do a scenario with Leah, but I want to go over this first. So what is ACE? What does it represent? Adverse, good or bad? Depends. Okay? The idea is that it has a negative impact. Your response to that situation was negative. Sometimes we need adversity. Adversity helps us to grow. But it's our response. And keep that in mind, our response to that. So, as I go through this, I want you to begin to look at some of the questions so you can understand how it relates to you. And then we're going to group you a little bit so you can talk about it from a personal level. It's easier sometimes to work in small groups than a group this large so that you can explore. So, when you're looking at adverse childhood experiences, it is grouped in 5 categories. 5 categories are personal. The other 5 categories are external. Okay? So let's look at the personal categories first. What are they? First is what? Okay? Physical abuse. Some of us have dealt with physical abuse. If anyone who was a guardian or an older brother or sister pinched you, punched you, pushed you, physically assaulted you in any way that you felt threatened, that is physical abuse. Now, unfortunately, when we're trying to process abuse, we'll see, I heard a gentleman one day say he hit his girlfriend and he said, "Oh, I didn't hit her that hard." And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, okay? In his mind, that was justified. And in her mind, maybe she thought it was justified too if she had a childhood experience of abuse. She may not have read it for what it really was, because in her life, that was normal. What is the next one? Verbal abuse. These are events that happen to you and me as a child, but your response as an adult relates to what happened to you as a child. Yes, okay? So now we're looking at verbal abuse. What are some examples of verbal abuse? Okay, you're stupid, cursing, name calling. You'll never be anything. You're so fat, okay? You're just like your fill in the blank, okay? Negative response of the parent or some other adult, okay? I remember in my own family history, it wasn't me, it was someone very close to me, and the music teacher told this individual, "You will never be anything." And the reason he said that was because he tried to sexually molest the child, and the child refused. The child was an exceptionally talented, gifted musician. But the person she looked up to in her authority said to her, "Oh, you will never be anything," because she refused the abuse. It hurt her. It hurt her for years. For years. What's next? Sexual abuse. We hear about this constantly. It's in the news. It's teachers and adults, and sometimes when you go to certain types of schools, you see this, okay? Those of you who are educators, we know the devastating effects of sexual abuse. Physical neglect. What is that? Children that are abandoned. Basic necessities are neglected, okay? They're hungry. It could be other things, okay? Could be not cleaning up the bed after the bed has been wet all of the time. This child is neglected. The child is sort of raising themselves at such a very young age. And lastly, emotional neglect. What does that mean? It's mental abuse. You don't show love. The parent or guardian is emotionally unavailable. They're like that. Okay, so these are the 5 personal views. Let's take a look at the next category. These are non-personal. So somebody else around you had a stress or a stress disorder. And now you're dealing with that. Have you heard of the case where children are taking care of an alcoholic parent? Okay, so that's a child who's maybe 10 years old taking on a huge responsibility. They are almost parenting the parent. Let's take a look at the first one, the alcoholic parent. Very, very difficult to deal with. I remember a very, very dear friend of mine when I was in high school, and she was so precious. We were on the gymnastics team together. But her mother was a chronic drinker, chronic alcoholic, and she had had her first child at 13. Because usually when there's one situation, you have sort of a domino effect. Other situations happen. And so in the neglect of caretaking, she ended up being pregnant at about 13. We were in high school together about 15, and she did not finish high school because every day she had to come home and take care of her mom instead of doing her homework. And she was pretty smart. Family member in jail. How many times do we see this in the United States, especially amongst fathers? Okay? Family member in jail, very difficult to deal with. That person cannot be emotionally available. It's impossible. How about as much as they can be? Some of them do try. Family member diagnosed with a mental illness. Now again, that's where caretaking is involved. Okay? And mental illness has a myriad of things. It can be depression, anxiety, and various other aspects of mental illness. Disappearance of a parent through divorce, death, or abandonment. Ladies and gentlemen, our families are breaking down. And when the family deteriorates, it affects the children in ways we cannot even imagine. And so it's critical that we teach our children not to just get married for the sake of getting married. They need to get married with a very conscious and intentional idea of what family and marriage is, and then you work through it. Everybody has problems. Everybody usually has some type of argument. There's nobody that's perfect. I haven't seen the perfect man, and I bet if I asked every woman in here, okay, in a survey, is your husband perfect? Her answer would be, by no means. But he might be a good man. And so we look for the good in each other, and we work with that, okay? But nothing is perfect. So these are the non-personal categories. What are they? How many do we have? Okay, and how many for the personal? Now, the key to remember is that this is not the only picture. There are other attributes that we have not discussed. These are just the main ones that were identified in the study. You can get this on the internet, and for those of you that have your iPads, you can follow along with me on this. So I'd like to pull that up so you can see it, and you can follow what I'm doing. I put it in a PowerPoint just so that you can see it with ease. All right. Now, this is the website that I'm doing the PPT from. Can you see it at the top? Okay. Here, aces2high.com. aces2high.com. You can go to Google, and all I did was type in ACE assessment. And this is aces2high.com. And it says, got your ACE score. How many have it? Got it? Good. Okay, good. I see 2 hands. It's called Got Your ACE Score. Aces2high, no space.com. Yeah, I did ACE assessment in the Google category. When you're doing a Google search, I just did ACE assessment. I just did ACE, ACE space assessment. But this is HTTPS. How many have it now? Good, good, good. Looks good. Yes, that's it. That's perfect. Can I show you this on hers? Aces2high. Okay, so I've just covered this first part with you. Those are the 5 areas. What I want to point out to you that there are many other types of traumas. This is just the 10 that were identified, and this study was done for quite some time. Okay? Aces2high. It might be easier to follow me. I'm going to go back to the PPT for those that don't have the electronic availability. You know, with the black screen, I can't see where it is on here. No, I don't need the beginning. Just want to go back to where I was. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Okay, most of you who have downloadable information, you should be able to see it. You can follow what I'm saying on the PPT the same way. I took excerpts from it just to give you highlights because we need for the purpose of time. That's a newsletter. What I have is AC, it's the test. That's not the right one. Yeah. She said she can help you. Got your AC score. It's somewhere on here. Get your AC score. Okay, so I need to continue. So key assessment factors are that each type of trauma, you're going to do this assessment right now, that's what you have in just a moment, counts for 1 point. Each trauma counts for 1 point, okay? Also, a person who's been physically abused with one alcoholic parent, for example, this is just an example, and a mother who has been beaten has an AC score of 3. So you see how it accumulates. So if you have more than one, your AC is higher, your ACE is higher. As your ACE is higher, how do you think it affects your health? It negatively, yes, it does. It really exacerbates any situation you have from a health standpoint. Okay, so key points. There are many traumas in childhood. These are just 10, okay, many. And, for example, watching a sibling being abused is a trauma. Losing a caregiver, okay? My grandmother was my caregiver for a long time. Now, she did not die until just before I came to Korea. But imagine if for some reason she died when I was 14. That would have been another trauma to my ACE score, okay? Homelessness. Think of how many people are in homeless situations, especially children. As I live in Asia and all over the world, homelessness for children is off the charts. It really is amazing to see how sad it is. And there's so much we can do to help each other. We have to. It's the only way we can survive. And surviving and recovering from a severe accident. Another hit on your ACE score. Another hit on your ACE score. Think about these factors. Think about family members that this affects in your life. Think about how often these things happen when you were children. Okay? You could be witnessing a father being abused by a mother, witnessing a grandmother abusing a father. The ACE study included how many? 10. Only 10 childhood traumas. But because those were the most commonly mentioned in the Kaiser study. This was done by Kaiser Permanente, okay? And they looked at the people there. The traumas were also studied individually in the research literature. So these were the only ones studied. Some people say, well, I didn't have any of these events happen, but I had a problem. That's only because your particular event or / events were not covered, but there were more, okay? Was that a question? Okay, we need to do this by mic because we are being recorded. Can we have a mic for the question? Thanks.
Okay, I'm having a difficult time trying to answer some of these questions simply because I grew up in an era where if you got we use the word whipping, I'm from the South.
Yeah.
Or
I got them
spanking
too.
or whatever,
Yeah,
you know what I
did
mean?
too.
And there was a mark that was left on you. We didn't see that as abuse. And even today, I guess it was ingrained in me, I don't see it as abuse. So I'm having a difficult time because one of the questions asked if there was a mark left on you.
Okay, so the answer, if there was a mark left, the answer is yes, there was a mark left. Even though your perception might be one thing, the reality is, the question is that. There's a hand over here, yes. But I understand what you're saying. I also came up in an era where my father took no nonsense. And so I was the kind of child that worked at not getting any marks. Had very few. Had a few, but very few. Yes.
Rhonda, I have a question, or I guess a concern, because as we look at this, I don't know anyone who hasn't had some type of, even
That's
if the
okay.
event is not listed, I mean, you even said no one's perfect. I mean,
That's true. That's true.
I mean, so when I don't know. I'm just trying to, in my mind, think, when is crossing the line? Because everyone has had some type
Of course they have.
challenge.
Of course they have, but this was the key factor. This study was done with a large number of people, and this is grouped with other literature over the years. The health risk skyrocketed as a result of this. So even if, as I said, maybe a woman gets beat by her husband, but she doesn't think it's a beating because that's the way she grew up. Doesn't mean she wasn't abused. Her perception is this is normal. So that's why the questions are structured as they are, okay? So try to answer the questions as clearly as possible. As I go through the process, I think it'll become a little clearer. Okay, so in this study, these were the ACE markers that were common among 300 Kaiser members, and the traumas were also studied by the researchers. These were the common ones, not the uncommon. Yes, Hazel.
Question. If you had just one parent and your parents weren't married, what would you answer to 6? Were your parents ever separated?
Okay, I'm going to put you in a group. If your parents, in your case, they were never married, then that's a single parent. Okay, and I'd have to look at the questions again to know what to answer. Try to answer them as best you can, because I'm going to put you in groups, and these are questions I'd like you to ask within your groups, because dialogue helps us to grow. Okay, so it's time for me to get you into the groups so that we can move on. The most important thing to remember in ACE is that the ACE score is meant as a guideline. It is not perfect. It just gives you a guide as to where your direction started and where your emotions are now. If you experience other types of stress, such as what Hazel mentioned, a single parent, okay? You didn't have 2 parents in the home, and this stress was there over the months, they would likely increase your risk of consequence. So if you had a single parent, you have increased risk, okay? Great. All right, so take a moment now, and I'd like you to answer these questions. Let's say about 7 minutes. So the question is, in sharing your woundedness with like-minded people, not somebody who has no idea what it was like to grow up with an alcoholic parent, but somebody who really could envision what you were going through, how you felt, how do you feel? I want your feedback.
Well, of course, I always feel a level of comfortness when I'm around like-minded people, and we don't always get an opportunity to do that. But you also maybe reflect back on, maybe I'm stuck there, you know, emotionally. I could, so unless I have an opportunity to sit around and share that, I don't get a chance to reflect.
Okay, so when we're looking at opportunities to recover, talking to like-minded people is really important. But I want to caution you, not everybody can hear your story. Not everybody can receive what we're discussing here. And what we're discussing in this room is not something that needs to be on Facebook. Okay? This is a personal one-on-one with somebody who went through what you went through. But the point of the exercise is that we can go through together. And as we form this group, ladies and gentlemen, I am imploring you to get each other's phone numbers, emails, contact information, and just call and say, Shirley, I just need you to pray with me. I was thinking about whatever was, and I know that you and I discussed this when we were at Fit for You. I just need someone to listen to me. Sometimes we need to talk. We are so stuck at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, and now we are 35, and we have never talked about it. Never talked about it in 20 years. These are the things that get us stuck. And as I'm going to show you later in the study, because you haven't resolved that wound, what is your fallback? It's your addiction. It's Baskin and Robbins. It's Kentucky Fried Chicken, okay? It's watching Scandal. and not doing your exercise. See, it's not always food. We think it's always about food, but there are so many addictions that we choose, and we need to make choices about how to cope. What's one coping mechanism? Talking with someone who knows and understands your story. But there must be a trust issue between you. This is not about public display. Okay, Mort.
It's amazing to know that other people have been through what you've been through.
Yeah.
And we just had number 2, like we were talking about being hit and had left
With a
marks
mark.
on you. And we talked about how it affected us, you know, like, and we presently realized that the perpetrator, they didn't have the skills to deal with
That's
what
right.
they were doing.
That's right.
And they thought they were doing the right thing,
Mhm.
you know, but then we asked, how did it make you feel? How did it make you feel? And for me, I remember one time I wanted to kill that person. I said, when I grow up.
That's reality.
Because I was young. The others had similar thoughts, but they done it in different ways.
Sure.
Disliking them, dissing them, getting
Sure.
away from them.
Sure.
You know, but it was amazing to know that people thought like you, been through that, and I never talked about it.
Have
You know,
mercy.
Then the last thing we wanted to, how did it affect us as growing up in our own families? And yes, you know, we started to do the same things,
Sure.
but then we realized that
Right.
it's not the thing to do. But it was just nice. It was a good exercise. I thank you for that.
I applaud you for saying that. Not because it's a good exercise, but he's talking about his reality. He repeated the behavior that he didn't like. And one of the emotions he expressed is he hated the person. He resented it. He wanted to kill them. That's a reality. When someone hurts you, your childhood response, you only have a couple when you're a kid. You don't know. And you go with what's there. If somebody did anything to my mother, I hated them. And I later realized how much resentment I had. But I grew and learned how to grow, and I'm trying to help you learn some of the things that I learned about emotional intelligence, increasing that intelligence by understanding your emotion and what happened. Also, he said a key factor, they did the best that they could. It wasn't the right thing, but just like Pastor Hayden said on Saturday, that you can be committed in doing what you think is right, and it's still the wrong thing. So understand where your adult caretakers were. This is not about blaming them. They might not have done the right thing, but understand they had their own woundedness, and it affected you. Yes.
I just thought that the exercise itself was wonderful because a lot of times for me, I suppress. And when I looked at it in black and white and I had to go through each of the 10 and identify, and I came up with a 6 out of 10. So sometimes we don't really understand or know how wounded
We really are.
we really are, and how that woundedness, if that's such a word,
It is.
impacts our relationships,
Yes, ma'am.
ourselves,
Yes.
and our family, and even generations.
Yes, ma'am. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for saying that. So let me continue. Oh, you had a comment? Yes.
One comment. The illustration that was presented about the heavyweight nurse who lost and went back, and this exercise just helps us all to know that you don't know what anyone
has been
is
through.
going through.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't know what anyone is
You don't.
going through and how it affects them.
That's right. Very nice, very nice.
All the years of my life, I've always suppressed so it's like at the back of my mind, and just this exercise has brought so many emotions, and I'm sure many of
More
us,
will come.
Yes, definitely.
And
So
I
we
want you
just
to
need
continue to explore them. You know, I only have a short time to finish up this segment, and Leah said we can have some evening time to maybe go back to this. But I want you to start looking at your heart. What is in my soul? What is it that I really haven't worked with? Why is it that I lash out at my husband or my children or somebody and you have no clue. It has nothing to do with them. It has something to do with where you were hurting many, many years ago and never realized it. Thank you for all of your comments. So let me draw you back to the website. Remember, you can pull this website up and read it slowly and intimately for yourself to understand what it's saying. But this is key. This is a tiny bit of background, and this was an adverse childhood experience study, and is the largest, most important public health study that has been ever done. Guess where it began? In an obesity clinic, just what she said. People who were overweight due to emotional issues. Ladies and gentlemen, healthiness, holistic health starts where? In the mind, in the heart, in the soul. We're exercising every day, but if you're not working on those emotional issues, I guarantee as soon as somebody makes you mad, Morty, you're going to be ready to pow them, okay? Because it's in the mind. So the CDC, this is the Centers for Disease Control in the United States. They're recognized all over the world, okay? The Adverse Childhood Experiences Study shows a link between childhood trauma and what? Chronic diseases that people develop as adults. So I'm hurting as a teenager. I'm hurting as a 10-year-old. I'm hurting as a 3-year-old. But what happens when I become an adult? I have not just an acute disease, but a chronic disease. And chronic means what? Long-term. Long-term disease from something that happened to me as a child, as well as social and emotional problems. And what I'm trying to dig out today in these few minutes we have are the emotional issues that come as a result of that trauma. But it does affect us socially, and it includes what? Read this with me. Heart disease, and many autoimmune diseases, as well as depression, and being a victim of violence and suicide. And there goes my father, suicide. And so being a victim of violence is the lady who says, oh, he didn't hit me that hard, okay? And the perpetrator is the guy who does the violence. He's the one on the other side that says, oh, it was nothing, she deserved it, okay? These are excuses. We have to work within our emotions. And so since that time, and because we're so evidence-based, it's important to recognize that the study results published in 1998 was followed by 57 other publications through 2011. So this is not old information, it's continuous. It's continuous information that we see. So you can see that the childhood diseases, and I want to point this out to you, didn't just happen amongst one group of people. Okay? It happened amongst many people, even the white middle class, college-educated people with great health insurance. Because if you're in Kaiser Permanente, you're probably with a company. Okay? So you probably have a regular job. So if you look further down, and let me take this down, you can see that 17,000 people in the ACE study had a score of almost 90. 17,000 is huge. Right here. Okay? 87% is literally 90%. And it says some of those people, they had more than one. Okay? And they had 18 states have done their own ACE surveys. So if you go back to your state, wherever you live, they may have done ACE surveys. Check it out and see if you can participate in that study. So I'm going to take you a little bit further down. Okay, and I want you to look at this middle section where it says, as your ACE increases. Okay, you can see this section. As your ACE score increases, so does your risk of disease. So does your risk of disease, social and emotional problems. If you look up further, it says that a person, the study researchers came up with an ACE score to explain a person's risk of chronic disease. Think of it as a cholesterol score for childhood toxic stress. With an ACE score of 4 or more. 4 or more. How many? 4 or more. Okay, I saw some of your papers. They were greater than 4. The likelihood of chronic pulmonary lung disease is 390%. That's huge. And then they have other diseases listed behind that. Suicide, 1,220%. These are off the charts. And by the way, lest you think that the ACE study was yet another involving inner city poor people of color, take note. The study's participants were 17,000 mostly white, middle and upper class, college educated San Diegans who with good jobs and great health care. They all belong to Kaiser Permanente. This is not a racial issue. It's a people issue. It's all of us, every one of us. Amen. Okay, microphone. She had a comment.
I was just saying they need Jesus. Maybe
they
they
need
Jesus more than we do.
Well, the point is we all need Jesus. Even with Jesus, we have these issues. We're still recovering.
Now,
But yes,
I had a
spirituality helps, but what I'm saying is I don't think it's the only answer. I just think it's part of the answer.
Yes.
But whether we have Christ or not, these are just people issues. That's all it is.
I just have a question. On one hand, like on yesterday, we saw a film. What was it? Sugar Fit? Sugar Fit? And all of the obese or the persons in that film that were suffering from illnesses and obesity and what have you, based on their diet. So on one hand, you have focus on diet leading to all of these conditions in adulthood. And on the other hand, you have this childhood trauma leading to these diseases. And there were some of us who had no score, nothing to report. So, you know, you're coming from two angles. One is eating habits, how you were fed as a child, how you ate as a child, what type of food you were given, how you responded to that, and how you grew up, you know, on that diet. And the other is, you know, emotion, childhood trauma. So you have to look at it from both angles.
What you're saying is connecting what I'm saying, okay? Your parents are feeding you from their own emotions. Your people, whoever were your caretakers, fed you based on what they knew. Okay? Now, if you look back at your emotion, the choices you're making to eat right now lead back to your addiction. Be it sugar, be it, I don't know, French fries, okay? Be it French fries, be it chocolate, be it smoking. I'm not going into the other addictions, but your choices are related to what made you feel good at that trauma point. And so that comes into your adulthood. Now you add other things on because you have another trauma, but maybe you add another food addiction to that if it's a food addiction. But I don't want to focus too much on food because diet is only one addiction that comes out of this.
But that, I was saying that's not listed under childhood trauma. Diet wasn't.
Obesity, it was at an obesity clinic, and so they did connect diet, but I can't go through every construct in it. But if you read the study, you will see that connection.
And where you have thin people who have these adult illnesses where it's not obesity, but it is an adult disease.
Oh, yes.
I'm saying, you know, you're looking at it on one hand from the point of diet and on the other hand from childhood
But
trauma.
thin people aren't always healthy. They're just thin.
That's the point. And
Yes.
they may not have had any trauma in their childhood. Maybe the parents fed them a certain way out of love.
Sure.
You know,
Sure, and that happens all of the time. But their parents are also feeding out of their own emotional state. And so we have to remember all these things. That's why we can't point fingers necessarily at parents, but understand they did the best they could with what they had at that time.
Yes, they could.
I was just going to make two comments. First of all, I find it so awesome how great God is, because Dr. Z and you are talking the same thing. Right. And so it's perfectly orchestrated. And then secondly, I want to comment that one time I forgot the name of the test that I took. And when the doctor finished scoring the test, it was a MMI. It was like, I can't think of the name of the test.
Yes.
But the doctor said, wow, you scored the results of someone who was obese.
Right.
Yes, even though I was thin, he said, if I didn't see you, I would have thought that you were obese.
Do you see that connection?
Yes.
It's in the emotions, because
Yes.
that's where the choices are made, here in the frontal lobe.
Yes, but I was thin, but I have, and still have an obese added mindset, so to speak, yes.
Good point. Okay. So I want to go through this quickly, because I'm going to give you one more test and show you where your emotional level is now as an adult. We've talked about you as a child. Now we're going to look at you as an adult. But just very quickly, you can see health risk experiences related with alcoholism, and this is just showing you the ACE score. Chronic depression, showing you, again, the ACE score. Orange is for women, yellow is for men, and the increased risk of these diseases that are listed at the top. With your ACE score, the list of prescription drugs. Domestic violence, look how high the risk of that is with a higher ACE score. Hepatitis. Smoking, again, something that we see in Korea, huge smoking problem. Okay? Being raped and sexually assaulted, look at that. Your ACE score has a higher risk of you being sexually assaulted. Amazing. Okay? Incidents of suicide attempts and teen behaviors. Okay? Impaired working performance and COPD. Okay? So, what causes this? It has to do with your developing brain and what happens in your brain as that trauma occurs. Okay? And at the same time that this is being done, they're looking at parallel research studies now for children, and you can again take a look at that. When I'm going to stop here at this point here, when children are overloaded with stress, they have fight or flight, and they can't learn in school. So teachers, when we see learning disabilities, sometimes it's not a disability, it's trauma in the home. And the children can't learn because they can't focus. They are hurting. I remember when my father was going through abuse, I don't know how I got the grades that I did. I know it's the Lord, but it was hard because it's very, very hard to focus. They have difficulty trusting adults and developing healthy relationships, and we're going to talk a little bit about relationships. So now I'm going to give you a second questionnaire, and this is looking at your score right now. What is your score right now? Oh, that was the one. Okay. Everyone, take a moment to do your emotional intelligence score right now. Okay. So everybody, okay, stay where you are. Stay where you are. Just watch us.
Okay, Rhonda,
Yes.
I hate to put you under this pressure.
Yes.
But I need 3 assignments.
But you just
done
told me to.
in 2 days. Can I just tell you what they are, and then we'll make a decision. I need a full report of the nutrition education event from 2 days ago. In order for us to get funding, I have to have that then. I need blood work results first and second week of fitness camp categorized by age and gender.
But you just
and
said.
one more, please. End of the month, report on the last drug addiction program, including the feedback.
But it'll take me at least a week to do the drug addiction program. When do you want them?
I need them in 2 days. You figure it out, okay? I'm sorry to do this to you, but you'll figure it out, right? Rhonda, you always come through. Thank you so much. You're the best. See ya.
First thing, She always puts it on me. Why couldn't she tell me this a week ago? You mean she's coming to me now to tell me she wants a report that has to be done, and the end of the month report takes at least, you know what? Did she have a fight with Kenny this morning? What is wrong with her? You know, she never does her work. She makes me do my work. Now notice that my emotional response is painting a whole picture for her that may have nothing to do with it. Maybe she got a phone call that her mom was sick, but I'm already pointing fingers out at her. My emotional response is stuck. She never does her work, okay? Now we're going back into CBT. We talked about cognitive behavioral therapy last Fit for You, okay? I'm overgeneralizing. She never. When you're talking to your husband, your child, or anyone who counsels will tell you you should never say, never does anything, because that's an overgeneralization. Now, she comes to me and she says, you know, you're good. You can get it done in 2 days. And she was pretty nice about it. But imagine going home to the boss that's not going to be as nice as Leah, okay? What are some of the things that you can do? Well, Leah, you've given me these 3 things. What would you like me to finish first? Okay, that's the first thing. You say these 3 things. I'm happy to do it. Let them know you're supporting them, but ask them what would you like done first, because it takes 5 days to do this report, this end of month report. And so you're now dialoguing, saying, I understand something might be going on with you. You can't pry, you know, you probe in there because they'll let you know if they're ready for that, but you can say, what would you like done first? And say, it might take me 3 days. Would it be okay if I had an extra day to do it? Begin to dialogue with the people. And now I'm talking about emotional intelligence. I want to say one more thing. We'll give you this tomorrow. This is a resilience questionnaire, and it gives you an answer. It shows you how to do the things to combat against ACE, childhood experiences, okay? It's called a resilience questionnaire. You can also find this on the internet, and we will make hard copies of this so you can take this. But these are the things that if these things happen, such as when I was growing up in high school, I had a very supportive gymnastics coach, and she was the one that told me that I could go to school and that I could finish college and that I could graduate. And because of her, because God put her in my life, I was able to hear some things that rattled in my head. My stepmother, before she passed, I saw her take her graduate degrees while taking care of my father, taking care of my sister and I, working a full-time job and going to graduate school. Those kinds of things are supports that we don't realize that help us. So let me go really quickly back to the PPT because it's just about time for lunch, and I don't want to miss lunch, as I'm sure you don't either. Okay. Okay, emotional intelligence. I just gave you an example of that. I'm aware something might be going on in her world. I don't see it, but something might be going on in her world. Take a step back. Send her an email. It takes 3 days to do this. You've given me 3 things to do. It gives her time to cool off. It gives you time to regroup. Okay? Give her an idea that it might take this time. Which one would you like first? Give her some latitude. Don't just attack her at this instant that it happens. Because remember, you could be back in childhood when your mother gave you 5 things to do, and now you're really angry because this person really reminds you of your mother, but you're not saying that in your head, but you're saying that in your heart and in the way that you answer her. Okay? So keep that in mind. Your emotional intelligence focuses on your decision making. I make a decision to follow what she said, but I want to give her some latitude to help me to accomplish my job in a good way. Self-regulation. I could have gotten angry and I could have made a terrible fuss about it, or I can be aware of myself. This is related to my childhood. Maybe I can step back myself and take a look at what's happening. When you're looking at relationships with EQ or emotional intelligence, perceive the emotions of yourself and the person you're dealing with. Understand your emotions. Husbands and wives, you probably understand your partners a lot more. You may feel that your partner does not understand you. That's where you're looking at your childhood experiences and dialoguing. And I welcome you to take these papers to your spouses and share with them if you'd like and talk about them. Using your emotions and managing your emotions. How do you respond to a church member that is just complaining about everything under the sun? As a teacher, we have parents that are like that. How do we deal with those people? Okay? Now, in looking at emotional intelligence, you have self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Let's just take the first one. Know your own story. That's why I had you do the ACE. Know where your emotions begin. That way you can say, wait a minute, Rhonda. Check yourself out first. Secondly, develop skills for breathing and relaxation. I'm only going to take a second to go over that because I've run out of time, but I'll show you that in just a moment. Understand nonverbal communication. Notice that when Leah talked to me, I turned my back to her and rolled my eyes, okay? That's not a good way to manage your responses. And lastly, develop skills for reflective listening and empathy. I listen to her. I hear something's going on behind the scenes. Now, in empathy, I respond to her and realize that she's got a situation going on. Okay. And in this respect, you can make peace. You can learn positive, self-affirming beliefs. I am a good listener. I can be a better person. I can be a better employee. I can be a better teacher, okay? Develop a positive view of others. Leah is a terrific person. She's just having a bad day, okay? And develop skills for assertive communication. Well, Leah, I can't get this done, but is it okay with you if I have an extra day? So I've told her what my needs are in a positive way. She's more likely to respond to me in return. All right? And you can look at the other two for yourself because I'd like to go to what to do. Now, Carrie gave you some positive things that you can do to reframe yourself. What did she tell you? Breathing and some more. She gave you something else. Singing. She gave you singing. She gave you music, okay? Massage. She gave you several things that you can do. Well, this is something you can download on your devices, and it comes from the Department of Defense, in which they use for military training. It's called Breathe to Relax. Breathe to Relax, and it actually shows you how to breathe, and I pulled it up here so we could see it for just a second, and we'll just do the first one, which is 1 minute, and then we'll be ready for lunch. It's called Breathe to Relax. Google it. You will see it, Breathe to Relax. Something missing with the sound? Something missing with the sound? Where? Okay. It's diaphragmatic breathing.
Breathe to Relax is a portable stress management tool which utilizes the highly successful diaphragmatic breathing technique to reduce your stress response and help stabilize your mood. With Breathe to Relax, you can watch tutorials to learn proper techniques for diaphragmatic breathing and learn more about its positive impacts on your body and mind. You can review comprehensive information on the effects of stress and relaxation on your body using tools like the body scanner, or jump right into the breathing exercise where you'll start by recording your stress level. Then you can immediately begin the exercise by using the existing settings or adjust the breath cycle to settings that are customized for you. Breathe to Relax from the National Center for Telehealth and Technology is a free mobile application available through your iPhone, iPad, or iPod Touch and coming soon for your Android device.
I was trying to pull it up because I can't see. See, this is black. I can't see it from there. I've got to look up here to get it.
Breathing with our chest is a habit, and it
is.
may feel strange to breathe into the belly. But here's an easy way to start mastering belly breathing. I'll walk you through step by step. First, find a quiet place where you know you won't be disturbed. Lie down on your back on a flat surface.
Okay.
Put one hand on your upper chest and one on your belly, just below your rib cage. Close your eyes and breathe in slowly through your nose. Expand your belly as you breathe in. You'll feel the hand on your belly rise noticeably.
Okay, so your hand goes here. You're going to breathe in, and you're going to make this part of your body rise, okay? So you can watch Faye, you can watch Carrie. Can you come up front so they can kind of see your diaphragm expand? All right? The other way to do this is to put your hands here and feel the body expand this way. So you can either feel it expand this way or this way, okay? You're going to breathe into my count. Ready? Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. And hold. 2, 3. And release. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. And hold. 2, 3, 4. Release. 2, 3, 4. Let me make a comment. I see too many ladies. If I see this move, you are not breathing properly. You must breathe from the diaphragm.
Also, your stomach should go out when you're breathing. When you start, it should go out, and most people pull in.
Yeah, if I can correct just a little bit, we're so used to breathing, when we say breathe in, we go in. Actually, it's the opposite.
It's this.
So inhaling means that you're going to expand in this region. So just kind of feel it. When you're standing, your stomach really should not poke that way. It's going to go a little bit. When you're lying down, it will. It will. But when you're standing, it's just going to expand all around the region if it's doing it correctly. If it's poking like that, you're actually adding an unnatural motion to that. So that's not going to help it. Right. But
when you exhale.
Right. So we want to say
inhale.
Inhale and exhale does a little bit easier, because then that way you inhale, opening. Just feel like you're open. Open. Inhale. Exhale. Contract.
Okay. All right. So let's try 3 of them.
We're going to practice this evening in relaxation at 7:15 while you're lying on your backs. We'll go over it again.
Okay. So let's just do 2 then. Ready? Inhale. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, and exhale. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Last one. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4. Yes, that's what Carrie's saying. As you inhale, when I say inhale, I'm referring to it going out. So we'll use that, okay? All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great lunch. Excellent, 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 excellent.